let's take a look at our top selections for Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the top two finishers of last year's Breeders' Cup Sprint, back in action in the hot springs on Rebel Saturday at Oaklawn Park. Let's take a look at the field for race number 10 at Oaklawn on Saturday. We're going 3/4 of a mile for $200,000. And Whitmore, yes, is back in action, last year's champion sprinter. Well, he's banked $4 million in his career, and he loves Oaklawn Park.
Yeah, he really does love it down here, Dan. It just seems like he runs well every year down here. No disrespect to CZ Rocket, who did really well off the claim for Peter Miller last year, but this race goes through the 6.
Now, they're going to have to name this race the Whitmore one day because he's won this race in 2017, 2018, 2019, and yes, in 2020 as well. He was the beneficiary of a beautiful ride in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. We'll talk about that in a second. And he has surprising tactical speed. I think he's been sort of pigeonholed as a closer. Let's see where Timeform US has him on the pace projector. We see the 5, Fire Crow. He's expected to set a pretty good pace with your college namesake, the 3, Mr. Jägermeister. Whitmore, we see him in last. I don't think he has to be that far back.
Yeah, he doesn't have to be that far back. You're right. He's more tactical than maybe he appears to be on paper. The good thing about him is no matter where he winds up early in a race, it seems like he shows up and runs every time.
The number 1 Boldor was gelded over the winter. He has come back a perfect 2 for 2, and he has kicked hard in both of those races. We were fairly impressed with how he came from so far back to win the Samstown, going 5 furlongs at Delta Downs. Tough to make up ground there at that distance. He came right back and proved that race was no fluke. Let's watch the King Cotton, his start at Oaklawn last month. Now, it came over a sloppy track. We're going to see him in the red silks. Once he gets to the clear in the outside again and he changes leads, he takes off. Now he's going to be facing better horses, obviously, in this spot, but I have a feeling this horse might be for real.
Yeah, stepping up at the right time off of 2 really nice efforts following that long layoff there. And I like this performance too, only because he stayed a lot closer to the pace. As you mentioned in the Samstown, he came from way out of it going 5. He kept a lot closer to the pace in that King Cotton. He had the best finish at the end. He beat a couple of these same horses he's going to face again here. They're stepping up at the right time. He could be dangerous in here.
The beaten favorite in the race we just saw, the number 2 Flagstaff, he was 4th in splitting horses belatedly in the King Cotton. He can easily take a step forward for John Sadler, who's putting the blinkers on for the first time. The one thing I didn't like about the King Cotton, and this horse had a ready-made excuse, several of them, the wet track, the long layoff, was he can stay a lot closer to the pace, and it just looked like he was outrun a bit on the turn. Maybe it was the wet track.
It could have been the wet track. It could have been the layoff as well. Maybe he just needed a race. And, the other thing about him, he just, for whatever reason, you're right, he wasn't keeping up on the turn, but he couldn't get forward early in the race. He just didn't break that sharply, and then it just felt like he lost position and wound up last. That's probably not where they wanted him to be, Dan. I thought all in all, he was racing on pretty well through the stretch. And if that was just a race that he needed, boy, he could easily take a step forward in here.
And from a speed figure standpoint, he is consistent. Since May 4th, 2019, every single race, the buyer within the range of 93 and 97, you get a good effort from Flagstaff. You know what you get from Mr. Jägermeister. That is unmitigated speed. He set the pace in the King Cotton in his first start off a summer layoff, and he just got tired at the end when behind Boldor. I know Fire Crow is fast. Maybe he's in here to help ensure a fast pace for Whitmore. Mr. Jägermeister, I think's the speed of the speed, though.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it too. I thought you'd see this horse on the lead again, and we'll just see if it, he can take, some kind of a step forward here. When you go back to the Hot Springs last year, Dan, he got basically loose on the lead. He controlled that thing in front of Whitmore, and he was still no match.
I've kind of lost it with Engage. I was a fan of his a little bit as a 3-year-old, and he did win the Phoenix in 2019 before, unfortunately, an abbreviated campaign last year for Steve Asmussen. Maybe his last race showed some signs of life. Let's watch that race on January the 22nd. He's the beaten favorite in here, but you're going to see he's in behind horses turning into the stretch. To me, Engage is the kind of horse that if you throw a stone or two in his path, he'll find a way to lose. Maybe he needs a good trip to win. All in all, this is an okay race, Mike, considering you really didn't get clear until very late.
Yeah, maybe he had a little bit of an excuse here. To me, it's just more of the same from Engage. I'm not a fan of this horse, Dan. I think he's all dressed up with nowhere to go. Even his good races to me aren't that good. I just don't like the horse, but he should be at an okay price in this race if you do like him.
Fire Crow is Whitmore's uncoupled stablemate, and he has speed. Let's watch his most recent race at Oaklawn. His second start off of a lengthy layoff, over sloppy going, and an optional claimer. He made the pace in here, Mike, and I didn't think they were going especially fast. He just gets a bit tired at the end. Buyer speed figure of 91. That's a career best. That's the good news. The bad news is a 91 is not going to get close here.
Yeah, even if he runs, another race like this one, he's not going to get anything against this field, Dan. He was no match at the end of the day in that race we're watching anyway. I mean, he just has a lot of improvement to do, and I'm with you. I don't even know if I feel like he can make the lead in this race.
Let's watch Whitmore's Breeders' Cup Sprint. I thought this was one of the best rides of the Breeders' Cup. Arad Ortiz dropped down to the inside on the backstretch, saved ground. He's going to get out. All the moves work out. And once he gets into the clear, Whitmore blows the pace setter away, and he wins very comfortably. I know this might not be a vintage renewal of the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Whitmore looked very good, albeit with a good trip. We see CZ Rocket, a very steady horse, moving into second.
Yeah, I agree with you. The trip felt like it had a lot to do with it in the Breeders' Cup, Dan. He just got a great ride from Irad, but he still ran the race that he ran. I mean, he won that race really easily at the end. And he's been good for so long. He loves this track. It seems like he always comes back and runs well off the layoff at Oaklawn. To me, he's just way the horse to beat.
I really respect CZ Rocket. He ran on for second in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and that race came off the heels of a graded stakes victory over Flagstaff at Saint-Denis. As a matter of fact, he beat Flagstaff twice in a row. I look at the Oaklawn record for CZ Rocket, a consistent horse who's never hit the board at Oaklawn. I wonder if he may not love this track.
Well, that's actually interesting. That's not even something that I had considered. I know that at least a couple of his races at Oaklawn have been going longer, Dan. So I wonder if maybe that had something to do with it. But still, listen, he makes sense in this race. We did a lot of his races last year after Miller claimed him. I feel like I didn't like him in any of those races, and he just kept winning. He's obviously pretty good, and he has good tactical speed too. So he should get a good trip in this race.
Miller's done a very good job. He took this horse, he concentrated on shorter distance races, and it has paid dividends. We take a look at our top picks for the Hot Springs. Now, you'll notice that last year at Oaklawn, Whitmore, who usually fires fresh off the bench, it took him a race. And I have a feeling that the connections wanted to save something in the tank for the Breeders' Cup. If that's the case, it worked out very well. I'm hoping that Whitmore's ready to fire in the Hot Springs here to win it again. I think he's just the best horse.
Yeah, that's how I look at it too. I actually felt like even off the layoff last year, he ran well down here, Dan. He just got wired by a horse who got pretty loose on the lead. I don't know. I'm just going to take him. I think he's better than these horses. Again, I want to respect CZ Rocket just because they've done such a good job with him, but I can't buy into that horse.
I'm going 6-2. Mike's going 6-2. We think Flagstaff can improve with that last race under his belt and adding Lasix. 6-2-1-3 for me, 6-2-1-7 for Mike. Welcome back, Whitmore, in the Hot Springs.